The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? Do you think living out of your car and then going to school is rough? It is. Amber and Scott discuss the true story that is Brave the Dark. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
Wow. An inspirational true story. And we know it's true because they gave us pictures afterwards from the real thing. Wow.
Okay, yes, this must have been production from Angel.
Oh, it was.
Which obviously ends its films with a QR code and an invitation to buy a ticket for someone else.
I think it's begging is the word we're looking for.
No, that's not the word we're looking for. We're looking at spreading the goodwill of good gestures.
Oh, they're spreading something.
Anyway, this episode we are talking about Brave the Dark. When Mr. Dean discovers one of his students has been living out of his car and thrown into jail, he decides to bail him out. Determined to curb the guy's name was Nate. To curb Nate's self-destruction behavior, Mr. Dean quickly discovers a host of dark secrets that are slowly tearing Nate apart. What started as a good deed becomes a desperate fight to save Nate from his own demons. As Nate spirals deeper into despair, Mr. Dean must decide how far he's willing to go to save a kid on the brink of losing everything, even himself. Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted.
I'm not impressed. I lived in my car, went to jail, and lived with a teacher while I was in high school, too. So, wow.
Okay, well, I guess the what would you do is in your court then.
I do have some experience here.
Okay.
Yeah, no, actually, genuinely. I mean, okay, I didn't really go to...
Is this a true story based on you?
Not quite, no. I did not have my mother brutally murdered by my father.
Okay, well, get into the part then that you do have in common here, because obviously what would you do? And you've done some of the doing.
I mean...
You've done the do.
I didn't sleep out of my car for 2 years, but I spent probably double-digit nights in my car.
10 nights?
I mean, at least while I was attending high school.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, obviously...
Well, in this character...
As we've discussed, I've done more than that since. But, yeah, like while I was in high school, double-digit nights, I did go to, well, at least as close as jail as you do when you're...
Juvie?
I went to juvie for one night, a single night.
What did you do?
What? Oh, well, that's a long story. It mostly involves my dad being an asshole and my brother being an asshole and locking me out of a house and me putting my shoulder to the door and breaking it in and knocking a door frame off. Just a frame. And then getting charged with Class B criminal mischief. Which was all, honestly, I don't even think was ever really real. Like, I never went in front of a judge or anything like that. Like, it was complete bullshit. I think it was just, let's scare him straight. Fuck you. And
Hey, you're still crooked?
Oh, very much so. and I did indeed actually live with one of my teachers for several weeks during like Christmas and New Year's time of my senior year.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this movie hit a little close to home then.
It did a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I've been in that position and I didn't love it because, I mean, I kind of was the school charity case. Hi, Mom. Mom, not blaming you. I know my mom has a lot of guilt as it pertains to this, and she shouldn't. My dad should, but my mom shouldn't. But yeah, like one of the teachers like paid for my tux rental for prom.
Oh wow!
Yeah, believe it or not, a teacher I never even had.
Wow.
I had barely any interaction with them.
That's amazing, and that's kind of where one of our main characters, Mr. Dean, is it would have been very easy to step back and just kind of gossip like some of the other teachers, but he took his vocation seriously in saying that, what are we here for if it's not to help the kids? And the fact that you had a teacher that you didn't even know do that for you, what an amazing person.
Yeah, the teacher that took me in was one of my academic decathlon coaches. And she and her family are all wonderful people. I'm actually friends with them still on Facebook these days. They're all wonderful people. I will say the fact that I was competing in the C division, because you have 3 A's, 3 B's, and 3 C's, that I was able to compete in the C division and was basically a ringer in that division.
Oh, sure.
Like, let's keep this guy safe.
Of course. Yeah.
But in fairness, she's the type of person who would have done it anyway. So
And it's interesting because this movie was set in 1986, and I know your experience is probably 10 or so years after that. And I certainly don't know much about the teaching world in high school at all these days, but I would imagine that teachers really probably can't step up in those ways because there's so much liability. And I mean, gosh, I can't even imagine what what kind of problems could come from that for a teacher these days.
Yeah, I believe the phrase "no good deed goes unpunished" would come into play in 2025.
Yeah,
for sure. So, but yeah. I mean, there were a few parts. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like my upbringing, my childhood was nearly as rough as his. It was not. I never had my father's brains splattered on my face.
Yeah, I mean, Nate had a backstory which was a little fuzzy, and as the movie went on, we ultimately discovered that his mom got beat up a lot by his dad, and finally the mom got in a situation where she had the dad removed from his house and started seeing someone new who she was really happy to be with. And the dad came back and shot her and killed her and then killed himself in front of Nate when he was 6 years old. So there's a lot of trauma there.
That doesn't traumatize you.
Yeah, and this story was actually a true story that was actually written by the real life Nate, who changed his name to Nathaniel Dean, which was the last name of the teacher who took him in and helped him through this period of his life, really from being a high school senior through adulthood until Mr. Dean recently passed away a couple of years ago.
I'd like to know how much of that was dramatized and how much of it was real, because I feel like there's no way all of that was dead real, but I feel like probably most of it was. I feel like probably real things that just got embellished.
What are you questioning?
I don't know. Like was the dad really standing in front of him when he blew his brains out? Like little things like that.
If you're writing your life story, though, I would think I would be somewhat true and not making things more horrible than they needed to be, especially if I felt like I had survived a lot. I don't know if I'd be making my situation worse.
But see, that's the thing too. So there's a difference between a biographical film and based on a true story. And I think this was the latter. It was based on a true story, but it's Hollywood. You pep things up.
Yes, pep. Interesting word choice there.
Yeah, but just just put the kid in front of the dad when he blows his brains out. It'll give more sympathy.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this conversation's taken a turn. So
that's pretty much every conversation with me.
That is true. So what would you do? I think I would like to explore the situation of Mr. Dean, who is the teacher, and really went to the bat repeatedly for Nate. And one of the more comical parts of the film is that everybody knew and liked Mr. Dean. It didn't matter where he was, if he was in the streets, if he was, coming or going from any business office. Everyone said, "Hey, Mr. Dean. Hey, Mr. Dean."
I actually saw him as Robert Holliday, who was one of my teachers, not the one who took me in, but another one who actually knew what was going on and did a lot to kind of help me behind the scenes on things. And everyone knew who he was. Like, he was the guy. We had our historic Paramount Theater in Abilene, and like whenever they did historical films, he's the guy who would come out onto the stage beforehand and give background and talk about it. We went to his house once. He had like an entire room that was floor to ceiling, all the walls DVDs, and that wasn't even all of them. Like, Mr. Paramount, like, and everyone loved him. He there was no one who didn't like him. He was just an amazing person. He's the only person on the planet who was ever allowed to call me Scotty.
Yeah.
And now that he is no longer with us, that means nobody can.
It's amazing that teachers can have such a profound impact on us when we're growing up. And I remember a teacher I had for the first time in 9th grade, and his name was Mr. Lowry. And he was weird and funky, and his classroom was decorated weird, and he would say weird things, and he was the best thing ever. And everybody loved Mr. Lowry except for the burnouts who would sit in the back and just thought he was a weirdo. But I took every single class that Mr. Lowry taught, and he taught a wide spectrum of classes. He taught AP history, he taught philosophy, he taught sociology. It didn't matter what Mr. Lowry taught. I wanted to take the class, and I did. And he was one of those teachers that you remember.
I don't think I ever. I'm sitting here trying to think outside of like academic decathlon and yearbook. Well, okay, no. I was gonna say, did I ever have a teacher more than once? A German teacher. I did. My 2 years of German, I did have the same teacher. I don't say that. I don't think I actually had. And maybe I'll think back later and be like, no, Scott, you idiot. You had this person like a million times or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, that we just didn't have that opportunity.
I had, as long as we're talking about teachers, I had a teacher when I was in, I think it was 10th grade, it might have been 11th. And it was like, this wasn't it, but I feel it was like AP poetry or something. It was some sort of
AP poetry.
It wasn't. That's I said. It wasn't that. Maybe it was AP literature. I can't remember. But I remember we studied poetry in this class a lot. I remember it was taught by Mrs. Dieter, and I remember the first names of these teachers as well. It was Del Lowry and Kay Dieter, and she loved poetry and she loved stories. And I remember like she would get so entranced in all of it. And one day, Mrs. Dieter didn't show up to class. And they kind of sent someone to babysit us. And the next day they sent someone in to babysit us. And I can't remember how many days had passed, but we ultimately learned that Miss Dieter had killed herself. And she had walked out into the woods. And at the time I went to school in a very snowy, cold place that had winters, and it was winter. And she just walked into the woods and sat down and just let herself freeze to death. And
oh, God.
And I remember the rest of that semester, we kind of just got babysat and, told to read independently. And we never really got a replacement teacher. And I can't say she was a favorite teacher or a teacher that I loved, but I remember that she loved the subject she taught. And as many years as it's been since high school, I have thought of Miss Dieter many times and what she must have been going through to have done that. I'm sorry, I know that took a turn, but we're talking about teachers that we remember in high school.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I'm looking at, I'm actually Facebook friends with several of my teachers from high school, and there's a few others. And some I've just kind of wondered, what the hell's happened to them?
It's funny, when you're a student in high school, you don't think that your teachers are human beings. You don't think of them as people with lives. And I remember when you're in school and you see a teacher at the market or at the bank or somewhere when you're out with your mom or dad, that it's like this sighting that you've seen a teacher. Oh my gosh, I saw so-and-so. And for a good part of my youth, I went to parochial school. So we wore uniforms. And I remember anytime seeing another student in street clothes was kind of a deal. It's like seeing people outside of their uniforms. But I remember anytime you see a teacher, it was weird to think that, oh my gosh, they shopped and they went to the mall and they saw movies, because teachers just don't seem like regular people when you're a kid.
You know what's really weird?
No.
I was looking at my German teacher just now, and
yes, I see you clopping over there, stalking.
I thought she was. No offense. I thought she was so old. I did. I thought.
What was she, probably like 32 when she was your teacher?
53, 54. My memories of her are not that age, but I suppose it actually makes sense. It is amazing, our perception of age.
Well, and at that time, that was probably older than your parents, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and as you age, it used to be when you were younger, like, oh my gosh, they're so old, they're 33. And then as you get older, then you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe they died so young. They were 78. Our perception of age changes as we age, doesn't it?
They were only 93, so young.
Poor Betty White didn't make it to 100. But who were we talking about the other day that's on the cusp of being 100?
Oh, Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, DVD is almost there.
DVD. So yes, I mean, obviously, Mr. Dean in the film was an amazing teacher who went above and beyond to
Maybe a little
help a
too,
kid.
maybe a little too above. Like the truth is actually the Christmas thing was a little.
He did buy a lot of gifts.
Honestly that went to creepy.
It was a lot of gifts, but also too, Mr. Dean had recently lost his mom after caring for him, and I'm sure he just wanted to have a good Christmas.
Especially considering that the first thing he opened was like a DSLR camera. Like
I don't think that was a thing back then.
sure they were.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't like digital or anything. Or okay, is that what the D stands for?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So shit. I don't know. It was a good actual camera.
Okay. Did you just change our rating from PG to R with your potty mouth there?
Probably, yeah. Digital single lens reflex. Yeah, so it wasn't a DSLR.
I didn't think it was.
But it was like one of those.
Sometimes I let you think you're right when you're wrong. So yes, be like Mr. Dean, I guess. Just care about people. Lend a helping hand. Be kind. We only have so many spins around this planet.
And it does matter. I mean,
especially when it comes to kids who people have given up on him, and the character of Nate, his grandparents had given up on him. The system had abandoned him, and if it hadn't been for Mr. Dean, I'm sure his life would have turned out much, much differently, other than writing a film about himself.
Yeah,
decades after.
You never really know sometimes, and I've learned this throughout my life, that sometimes you can have an impact on people way greater than you ever think you do. And sometimes even when you think you're having a huge impact, it can be even bigger than that. So,
and that's why, I think I saw something the other day, and it was a little quiz, and it was, name the 5 people who had won a Nobel Prize, and name, 10 people who had won an Olympic gold medal, and name 5 people who had won a Academy Award, kind of a thing of like celebrities or noteworthy people. And it was kind of like, okay, you can't name all these names, right? And then it goes on to name a teacher who made a difference in your life, and some personal things. And that's the thing is, yeah, people, celebrity types or whatever, they have recognition and influence, but it's just ordinary people who can really change the direction of your life with a little bit of kindness and a little bit of awareness and caring.
Yeah, it really is. Like if you want to be one of those people who can truly make a difference in people's lives, teaching's a hell of a profession for it.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I mean, my mom's a teacher. I have a lot of friends who are teachers. Yeah, no, it's a noble profession. I'd kill the kids. I can't do it. I have no patience. But bless you, teachers, for being able to.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.